Season 2 of Fallout TV is over, ladies and gentlemen, and it is very obvious that the third season got greenlit early on in its production. As for how consistent they've been with established lore, well, see for yourself. Now there's an easy way to rationalize this. We can just say that the tumor was pressing on a particular part of his brain, making him think this way, and call it a day. But let's not for a moment. In which case, what you're telling me is that Edward Sallow established the Legion, conquering 87 tribes, and campaigned to take over Hoover Dam, New Vegas, and conquer the NCR, build a great Roman-style empire, arguing that it ensures the human race's survival.
In Rome, I found a template for a society equal to the challenges of the post-apocalyptic world. A society that could and would survive. A society that could prevent mankind from fracturing and destroying itself in this new world by establishing a new Pax Romana. It means a nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, homogenous culture that obliterates the identity of every group it conquers. Long-term stability at all cost. The individual has no value beyond his utility to the state, whether as an instrument of war or production.
So that in the end, when he eventually dies, because he's not immortal, everything he's built ends up being meaningless. In reality, I should have been questioning this piece of paper the first time I saw it.
Caesar's dead. Bet he didn't see this coming when he was having his coffee this morning. Still, it's not gonna stop the Legion. Might not even slow them down. Intel we had back in the NCR said they had a whole succession lined up. They'll replace him as soon as word gets out. The other thing I heard is that he wasn't really commanding the army anymore. Guess we made sure of that.
Now in that last line, he could be talking about someone else. I have to look into it more. But still, was the NCR intel wrong? I know that everyone looking from the outside in could see the Legion was never gonna last. Even if it doesn't end with Caesar's death, it would fracture when they run out of factions to fight. But Caesar himself thought this too? Did he do all this just to taunt his followers? Just to be like, haha, congratulations on receiving the "You Fell For It Again" award? I'm not gonna lie, this one is rough, but we're not done yet.
It's good to be alive again.
It's good to be alive again? Now we know that the Lucky 38 hasn't been without power this entire time. In fact, the entire strip still has electricity. Where is it coming from? Who knows? Why is the strip radioactive? People have speculated that the Lucky 38's reactor is melting down. So if we assume that this is in fact Robert House and not Yes Man, and if we assume that by alive he means online, as in controlling his network again, then maybe whatever amount of power the building was receiving was enough to power his life support and other basic functions, but not enough for his entire computer network. That's the best I got. This show is making me do a lot of lifting.
Over the years, my body became something of a target for wandering travelers with something to prove. I have been poisoned, shot, bludgeoned with a crowbar.
I'll be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what on earth he's talking about. When could any of this have possibly happened? Pre-war, after Cooper left, Moldaver kept sending more assassins? No. Almost no one knew who the real Mr. House was, and that includes Moldaver. There were no wandering travelers back then either. They were tourists. With the amount of security we see this billionaire have around this casino too, there's no way they're getting close enough. Could it be that when the bombs dropped, House wasn't already in his life support pod? No.
On the day of the Great War, 77 atomic warheads targeted Las Vegas and its surrounding areas. Given that I had to make do with buggy software, the outcome could have been worse. I nearly died as it was. Software glitches set off a cascade of system crashes. I had to take the Lucky 38's reactor offline, lest it melt down. For nearly 5 years, I battled power outages and more system crashes until I finally managed to reboot my data core with an older version of the OS. I spent the next few decades in a veritable coma, but I survived, obviously, and eventually thrived.
He says that he nearly died. Nearly died of what? Buggy software. System crashes. He had to take the Lucky 38's reactor offline, which means he was already in the life support pod. Bombs were dropping and no one was in any position to breach the Lucky 38. But no one could have done that even during the 5-year crisis or the decades-long coma. Even if someone somehow managed to breach the front door, we all saw what it took to reach his actual body. Even if his Securitrons were offline at this point, the power outages would probably ensure lack of elevator access. And the hidden door leading to the other elevator to his body is only accessible via a hard lock terminal. No one even knows that he's alive at this point, so why would they even target his body? There's a credit scene showing his pod being breached and in an upper floor instead of underground. Those credit scenes are not reliable for lore context. Oh, the courier must have made attempts on his life. If the courier was going to kill him, he'd be dead. Besides, the courier probably never existed in this show. If there's someone out there clever enough to figure out how this could fit, please tell me in the comments. Because I can't figure out why the show's writers found this line to even be necessary. And this is something that the show keeps on doing. It keeps introducing new things that muddies the waters and are completely unnecessary to write a coherent story. But moving on. Okay, so the gate and the fence really were the only things keeping them on the strip. There were people trying to come up with theories about what's actually keeping them there, because surely Deathclaw could get past this. We're not dealing with cattle here after all. It doesn't take much to stop a cow. You throw up a little fence and they're like, fuck. But these things are big, fast, and I assume can jump quite high if they tried. And there's all this easy to kill food on the other side. Okay, these are new attachments that we might see come to Power Armor in the next Fallout game. It might end up feeling like we're playing Armored Core instead of Fallout, but it is cool.
There's nothing.
Okay, so we find out that Bud's buds are not even at level 1 in terms of character progression. They're at like -30. They're getting their asses handed to them by rad roaches. Now there was this one time where a rad roach killed me in Fallout 4, but that was only because a mod I was using wasn't properly tweaked. But anyway, the ultimate bootlicker ends up locking everyone except for Norm into a small room with all of the rad roaches. And I think you're really gonna have to suspend your disbelief on this one. All of the rad roaches ignore Norm, who's hiding underneath a lucite table with 4 legs. And after it's all over, Norm walks into the small room and everything is dead. Bud's buds and all the rad roaches. But miraculously, Claudia's thick ass is still kicking. Whatever.
I rigged every aspect of the city so I could protect its future.
I rigged every slot machine, every roulette wheel.
So you're telling me that my 10 luck stat character that was being thrown out of every casino in town, that was all part of your plan?
Turn left.
So this transmission is all coming through the data tab of the Pip-Boy. I would have still expected it to come through the radio section. After all, this isn't a recording.
When it came to predicting the end of the world, I was off by just a smidge.
I was 20 hours short.
But when it came to controlling the future, I was wholly outclassed by an invisible adversary. It was they who set the Deathclaws on Vegas.
Okay, so he's again very clearly talking about the Enclave. And I know that they're setting up to really suggest that the bombs were dropped by the Enclave first. And that the Enclave is still, to this day, extremely powerful. But, hold on, they infested the strip with Deathclaws from Quarry Junction? Maybe the bartender was just assuming that these Deathclaws came from Quarry Junction. Everyone knew it was infested with them, so where else could they have come from? They all look the same though. There's no alpha male or matriarch among them. But we do see hatched eggs. They were sent there within the last 15 years. We don't know when exactly, and we don't know what prompted them to send them when they did and not earlier. If they were using them as extra security for the secret vault, then why now and not then? How are they controlling them? Did they just lab grow a bunch of them and plop them in there? Or are they maybe using miniaturized versions of the mind control units we see in Fallout 3? Questions with no clear answers. But I guess this isn't too big of a deal, I guess.
And now one of their acolytes is here, in this very building.
Right. Hank is working for the Enclave. So the person he was talking to via the radio back in episode 1 was someone from the Enclave. They're always listening. But he was talking to someone specific. Who could that be? Surely he couldn't have been talking to the President of the United States, aka Clancy Brown. Hank's assuming that he was put on ice as well? Because we know that the Enclave has had presidents before, including Dick Richardson, aka Dick Dixon, and a robot in John Henry Eden.
Soon, we won't know who's been automated and who hasn't.
So it'll be a synth type of situation? Are you gonna try and implant gorillas next to? Yes, I still think the synthetic gorillas were a ridiculous idea.
Oh, son of a bitch! You shot me in the ass.
So this is very clearly a homage to the opening cinematic of Fallout New Vegas. And yes, it is very cool to see. I was like, okay, here comes the Desert Rangers we met earlier to save the day. This one is armed with an anti-material rifle, aka the Deathclaw Destroyer 4000. So he's got this. However, a platoon of NCR soldiers march in. A combination of troopers and rangers. Now ever since season 1, I've been saying, okay, so they lost Shady Sands. But surely, it would take more than that to take out the entire NCR, right? It's a big blow, sure, but still. And I've been saying that because the show itself kept portraying them as being over.
You never heard of the New California Republic? Well, if it makes you feel any better, it didn't work out.
We've been cut off from reinforcements for more than a decade.
Ain't nobody coming. 'Cause ain't nobody left.
And I got people online being like, you're an idiot for ever thinking the NCR were gone, even though the show kept trying to convince me they were. So I guess to give themselves the wiggle room to do this, they added this line.
When Shady Sands fell, we had a battalion out east. We could still get to them.
Shady Sands. You do know that was over 20 years ago, right?
And so after 10 years of being there, I guess they decided, you know what? I think it might be time for us to just go and reconnect with this battalion ourselves. How about that? I guess that's what happened. I guess after 10 years, that battalion was also still out there, still being supplied somehow. And after this handful of Desert Rangers show up, they send a platoon to New Vegas for reasons.
Stephanie. Ooh boy, Stephanie.
You see how fine that woman is?
Okay, now this next thing can be kind of tricky, but hold on. I think I might have it figured out.
The surface is the experiment, not the vaults.
What your ass say?
We were all probably thinking the same thing. The vaults were never the experiments? They were just done for shits and or giggles? Well,
I've already sent my R&D out into the wasteland. Unbeknownst to everyone, they're following orders written for them centuries ago.
now to fully understand where I'm gonna go with this, we need the next scene.
Death to management. Death to management. Death to management.
I've opened a door here that I regret.
Hank's keepsake box has an Enclave Pip-Boy in it. Stephanie uses it to contact them and tells them to initiate Phase 2. This also reveals that all of those ham radios you've encountered while playing Fallout, yeah, it seems the Enclave is tapped into all of them 24/7. But here's my theory. The TV show Enclave is a breakaway Enclave faction from the Fallout 2 Enclave. The whole cleansing the Earth thing didn't work out, and this faction is moving forward with their plan, which is to control via the chips, since they don't have sense. The Vault experiments are still viable for them, but they've run their course. The Vaults were Phase 1, and now that Hank has control chip people out there on the surface with their assigned orders, it's time for Phase 2, which is the surface experiment. That's the best I got. What do you think? Also, I don't think that the Enclave base is in Chicago. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Chicago has mountainous regions like this. I think this is a new Enclave that they've written for the show, and I think that they're based in Colorado, which is exactly where the Ghoul is headed, and where the game Wasteland 3 takes place. Fallout Tactics also goes there, and that's where Vault Zero is, but Bethesda's been hemming and hawing on whether or not it's canon. Well, this was one of the seasons of all time. I might make another video cataloging every significant lore implication from this season and give my overall thoughts on it. But there's some Star Wars focused videos I've been wanting to work on once this season's over, so I'll see what I can do. But as far as Fallout TV episodes are concerned, I guess I'll see you again in another year and a half.